Hello there and welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Charles Alpha. My sign language interpreter is Precious Ozomene. You can watch this news on Vision TV 24/7 and other social media platforms displayed on your screen. First, the headlines now. President Tinubu's administration receives commendation for determination to harmonize agencies with similar functions. Nigeria's First Lady flags off distribution of free exercise books to students of public schools across the country. Voters in Russia cast ballots in three-day presidential election. Now, the government of Borno State has commended the administration of President Bola Tinubu for its determination to now implement the Arosanyi report, which seeks to harmonize agencies with similar functions for better efficiency. Governor Babagana Zulum revealed this after his meeting with President Bola Tinubu at the State House. However, the governor is appealing to the president to reconsider the recommended measure of the Army University Bill with the Nigeria Defense Academy. The governor believes this will negate the initial intention for the creation of the Army University.
We pleaded that the Nigerian Army University, it should be a conventional, should be converted to become a conventional university under the Federal Ministry of Education rather than collapsing it with the Nigerian Defense Academy. And I'm happy to inform you that the President has directed me to write to him on this very important matter so that he will, inshallah, consider the request from the people of Borno State. Education is very critical. Education is the bedrock for any meaningful development. So without education, nothing will happen. And Borno State, because we have been facing this crisis for about 15 years, cancelling Army University means a lot to the people of Borno State. The insurgency will also be happy. What we mean by Boko Haram is that, education is forbidden. So they will be happy if now the Army University is collapsed.
Plans are on to develop a system that will harmonize data of all ministries, departments and agencies, as well as facilitate data exchange. Minister of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy, Dr. Bosun Tijani, says a framework for building this system will ensure transparency, save cost of governance, and will be visible in the next 6 months. ICT correspondent Chidima Ndubisi reports.
Nigeria is reputed globally as a country that has made strides in entrenching use of digital technology, especially in government services. The challenge, however, is that important data sets are domiciled in individual ministries, departments and agencies in isolation. Lack of data sharing and duplication are the outcomes. So, at the second edition of Devs in Government Summit, a community of technologists in civil service, discussions are on building collaborations for data exchange as the Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy strategizes to build a framework for data harmonization and sharing platform. The benefits, the minister says, are enormous.
It's easier for any part of government to be able to see what is happening in the entire country. It also helps with policy making as well, so that when we're making policies, we know we're using factual data sets to make policy. The other benefit of it is also in taking out duplication. At the end of the day, we harmonize even our form of ID.
Data don't necessarily have to be in the same format. And what has to happen is the configuration of data at the point where they meet. They must be easily interoperable.
Building standard and framework that MDAs will strictly adhere to guard against cyber attacks is considered a priority in this project, so as to protect government and personal data. In Abuja, Chimdima Ndubisi, NTA News.
And the Chairman Senate Committee on Media and Publicity, Senator Yemi Adoramodu, says no amount of lies or falsehood will distract the 10th Senate under Senator Godswill Akpabio, as it remains committed to delivering good legislation and effective oversight. He says the call for resignation of the President of the Senate by the PDP in relation to budget padding allegation was unthinkable, as he has not committed any wrong. Adaramodu added that those alleging budget padding failed to substantiate the claims on live television. He noted that the appropriation laws was made by the Senate and House of Representatives. The National Assembly will collaborate with the Nigerian Bar Association in the ongoing constitution review process. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, in an audience with leadership of the NBA, says the exercise is to further tinker with existing laws to bring them in line with current realities and make them consistent with what obtains globally.
Some of them are analog, as you are aware, and then some do not meet the aspirations of today. So the problems of 1960 in terms of security are not the same problems today. The world is moving fast, and so the law must move along with it. So that kind of synergy that we want to establish through that retreat, or through the stakeholders forum, or through the town hall meeting with security agencies, and will really help us to understand each other and know that we are all servants in the temple of justice.
President of the NBA, Yakubu Mekiao, used the opportunity to inform the Senate that the NBA is organizing a town hall meeting to foster understanding between legal practitioners and security agencies.
That amongst the legal practitioners in the country, across the country, and the law enforcement agencies, there has been this rift, if you like, but then it all stems out of perhaps the understanding of our primary call, both as law enforcement agencies as lawyers. We invite the heads of security agencies so that we can have that parley. Let the law enforcement agencies as well as lawyers, because some of us too need to be educated with respect to the things that we are primarily called to do, so that we see synergy in the things that we do and we can help move the process of the growth that the government of this country desires.
As the National Assembly kickstarts the process of another round of constitutional amendment, more Nigerians have described the review as critical to the advancement of Nigerian democracy evolution and national stability. Joshua Ogunjide spoke with a cross-section of informed minds who shared divergent views on the call for state police.
The 1999 Constitution, as the supreme law of the land, has been the ground norm for the country's democracy over the years. Recall that the Green Chamber on February 26, 2024 affirmed its position to address the pitfalls that led to failures of past constitutions in the country by working closely with the executive arm at the state and federal levels. Areas of emphasis include devolution of powers and state policing, which have been on the front burner since the inauguration of the 6th Special Committee on the review of the 1999 Constitution. Nigerians, however, caution that as good as the call for state police is, funding may generate controversy between arms of government.
The community policing was supposed to be financed by state, but state at a point in time felt that such responsibility should be a federal government thing.
The only challenge is the funding or something like that. The state is the state that will now be funding the state police itself, not from the federal government. So that shows that a lot of money is needed by the state.
Others have the perspective that the mandate may be hijacked by politicians, thereby posing a menace to its effectiveness.
There is need for a sincerity from the federal government that this state policing, how will the state government finance it? Does it mean there is going to be a separate funding that will be coming from state government that will not come from Nigerian police? Then under whose authority will the state police be? So that at the end of the day, some certain persons in states that are gladiators will not end up using such as a means to enrich themselves and as a means to protect themselves from arrest. Instead of state police, there is need for the federal government to see how the Nigerian police can be more equipped and more manpower being brought on board. There are a lot of volunteers outside there. We have the Man O' War, we have the Peace Corps, we have the Boy Scout, we have the Boys Brigade, we have Salvation Army, we have MOD, and other voluntary uniform organizations, the cadets. All these are voluntary bodies that can be harnessed and bring on board to support the Nigerian police and other security architecture of the country.
If you look at the level of insecurity across the country, you will understand that the structure of the Nigerian police as we have it right now is not working. So take, for instance, to put it in context, you know that most security challenges are local. And now, in my place where I come from, my local government, I can tell you that the DPO of the police station in my local government is from somewhere in central Nigeria, northern Nigeria. He doesn't speak the language, he doesn't understand the culture, he doesn't understand the people, and he is the man leading on security in those places. So clearly it will not work.
The new Nigerian constitution, according to the Constitution Review Committee, is expected to be delivered within the next 24 months. In Abuja, Joshua Okuchiri, NTA News.
Still on story coming from the legislature, the House of Representatives has asked the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC, to lift its ban on the production of alcoholic beverages in sachet and PET bottles, saying the ban was ill-timed considering socio-economic realities. Adopting the reports and recommendations of its ad hoc committee chaired by Representative Regina Akume at the Committee of the Whole, the House at Thursday's plenary, however, advocates strict regulations and more enlightenment campaigns against sale of alcohol in motor parks and underage consumption.
Inappropriate, given the fact that the economy is struggling, unemployment rate is staggering, and the inflation rate is soaring while the poverty level is on the increase.
The House encourages NAFDAC manufacturers and the general public to nonetheless prepare for a return to the ban on alcoholic beverages in sachet and PET bottles in the future. Starting with quality education, everything it takes to give Nigeria children a good future will be done by the current administration. Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu made this promise while flagging up the distribution of free exercise books to public primary school pupils and junior secondary schools students across the country. State House correspondent NTAi reports.
General salute! Present up! A guard of honor mounted by a detachment of students from Power International School, Abuja, was waiting for Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu and the RHI team when they arrived at the venue to flag off another milestone in the Renewed Hope Education Support Program. The distribution of over 1 million exercise books to pupils in public schools and students in junior secondary schools across the country will see each state and the FCT getting 50,000 copies, except for Lagos and Kano states that are allotted 100,000 copies each under the intervention. During a symbolic presentation of the books to the wife of Kogi State Governor Sefiat Ododo and the Executive Secretary of Universal Basic Education Commission, Hamid Boboyi, the First Lady says nothing is too much to support the future of Nigerian children.
We might do this every year so that to all our schools, so that we can at least carry some of your burden. So we'll see what else we can do. Education is very vital. So for our young people looking at me today, you need to stay in school. All right? Do whatever it takes for you. Don't join bad gangs. Don't crumble under peer pressure.
She appealed to state coordinators of RHI to monitor the distribution and ensure that the exercise books get to intended beneficiaries. Applauding the First Lady's passion for children, the Executive Secretary for UBEC says the intervention will address some gaps in the school system.
Requires somebody who has an interest in education to recognize this particular lacuna that is there in the system. An evil eye who would say yes textbooks are there and so on and so forth, but are the children getting the exercise books?
With the official flag off, benefiting states and the FCT are expected to take immediate delivery for onward distribution to schools. In Abuja, NTAi, NTA News.
You're still watching the news on NTA International. We'll take a break now. Please stay with us. Director General Voice of Nigeria, Jibrin Babandache, has sought the collaboration of Bulgaria and France in propagating the true and factual narrative about Nigeria and policies of President Bola Tinubu's administration to the global community. The Director General made the appeal when he played host to the Bulgarian ambassador to Nigeria, Yanko Yordanov, and France charged the affairs to Nigeria and ECOWAS Jean Francois has peril at his office in Abuja. Chukunonso Nwabeze reports.
The envoys are in the country under the auspices of the group of Francophone ambassadors to Nigeria. Bulgarian ambassador to Nigeria, Yanko Yordanov, who is also the chairman of the group, said their visit to the Voice of Nigeria is in line with the group's vision of deepening mutually beneficial relationship with Nigeria and to promote the learning and usage of French language to aid Nigeria's interaction with their French neighbors.
This is where Francophone countries and Nigeria can really work together, because you are the largest democracy in Africa. A very resilient one, and at the same time one of our biggest partners all over the world. So thanks to French, we believe that Nigeria will be able to deepen its relations, and first of all its economic relations with neighboring countries. That's why we are promoting French in Nigeria.
Director General Voice of Nigeria, Malam Jibri Babandache, while commending the envoys for the visit, assured them of the agency's willingness to partner with the group towards advancing positive narratives about Nigeria and Africa.
You know the focus of the President and Commander-in-Chief, President Bola Tinubu. Despite the obvious challenges as a country, he has shown his commitment, he has shown that he means everything that he said, and when he takes decision, he also follow up to create an enabling environment for people to continue to thrive. So as a government, I think this government is also focused on ensuring there is an enabling environment, and our platform is continue to tell Nigerians and other people who are reside here in Nigeria and even overseas diasporans what is truly going on in our country.
The meeting provided an opportunity for the group and VON to set in motion plans for a successful coverage of next week's La Francophonie Week in Abuja and the forthcoming Summit of Heads of State and Government of International Organization of Francophonie holding in France in October. Chukunonso Nwabeze, NTA News.
The United Nations says it will keep all of its team working on different projects and programs in Nigeria. This is aimed at promoting sustainability and also to deliver the kind of environmental mechanism Nigeria needs to potentially combat conflicts arising from climate shocks. The Food and Water Program, environmentally sound management and disposal projects, the agro-climatic resilience in semi-arid landscapes, governance, peace building, resilience and social cohesion are all parts of the United Nations' ongoing projects and programs in Nigeria. This is why representatives of the United Nations, UNESCO, FAO, and UNDP were led on a consolidation visit to the Ministry of Environment by the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Nigeria, Mohamed Fall of Senegal. Nigeria, to them, occupies a strategic position in Africa and would need all the support needed to stay ahead of the 4 United Nations cardinal pillars, which are people, prosperity, poverty, and planet.
Keep the team prioritize the response to the climate crisis and keep the team working in a way where we can see a significant impact.
We must try to make mistakes, and that's what we're trying to do. That annual council that we do is one area we to sit down and compare notes to the federal government and the sub-nations, the states, and see how we can now move together.
The point you make on synergy and a framework for cooperation is very important. And I think that we should think of how to leverage on technology to achieve this.
The various programs and projects in Nigeria, they say, cannot succeed if the United Nations team is disjointed and not in sync with the Ministry of Environment. Other issues discussed include conflicts, pollution, reporting of wildlife crimes, efforts targeted at preserving biosphere, and climate injustice. A new mechanism to ensure strict compliance with tenets of the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme has been presented by the regional bloc. In the next few weeks, all operators in the oil palm sector within the region will be brought under one umbrella to enhance regulation. Kelvin Egunaya reports.
The decision to set up an association of oil palm operators within the ECOWAS region is one of the several recommendations reached at the end of the meeting of stakeholders hosted by the ECOWAS Commission. The move is to enable the Commission fully enforce the regulations on free movement of agricultural produce of origin without operators cutting corners and making it difficult for custom authorities in member states to apply their respective rules effectively. This, ECOWAS believe, will open up the oil palm sector to more investment and grow the GDP of affected countries in the region.
Also agreed on the customs of member states to intensify cooperation in resolving these particular issues, and even the aspects of dispute settlement. We already have all those things in the protocol on ETLS scheme, but there is need to implement them, and we have agreed that from now henceforth, all the protocols on ETLS, on the movement of palm oil, and all other agreements that we have resolved here will be strictly implemented.
Through its Economic Affairs and Agriculture Commission, ECOWAS is to identify other commodities critical to the economy of member countries and protect them more vigorously through the application of products of origin regulations to boost cross-border trade. In Abuja, Kelvin Egunaya, NTA News.
In Russia, voters cast their ballots as the country's three-day presidential election gets underway. The election is expected to hand the incumbent President Vladimir Putin another 6-year term, even as the conflict in Ukraine spreads further into Russia's territory. Chukuna Sumwabeze reports.
Russians started voting Friday in a 3-day presidential election set to hand President Vladimir Putin another 6-year term. Polling stations in the country spread over 11 time zones opened at 8 a.m. Friday on the far eastern Karnataka Peninsula and will close Sunday at 8 p.m. in Russia's Kaliningrad exclave. In Moscow, residents queued under the morning sun to be among the first in the capital to cast their ballots. Voting is also holding in occupied parts of eastern Ukraine that Russia claims to have annexed. As voting started, both Moscow and Kiev say civilians had been killed in the latest wave of overnight area strikes. If victorious, Putin is to stay in power until 2030, longer than any Russian leader since Catherine the Great of the 18th century. Putin, in a pre-election broadcast on state TV, urged Russians to back him in the face of a difficult period. With all of Putin's major opponents either dead, in prison or in exile, the outcome of the vote is not in doubt. State-run pollster predicted earlier this week that Putin will secure more than 80% of votes. Chukunon Sonwabweze, NTN News.
And in Senegal, opposition figure Ousmane Sonko and his second-in-command presidential candidate Bassirou Diomaye Faye have been released from prison 10 days before the country's election. Chukuna Sumwabeze reports that their release is expected to change the political dynamics ahead of the March 24th polls.
Thousands crowded the streets of the capital, Dakar, in the early hours of Friday, singing and dancing as key opposition figures Ousmane Sonko and Bassirou Diomaye Faye were driven out of the city's Cap Manuel prison. Ousmane Sonko, 49, who was at the center of a 2-year standoff with the state and disqualified from running in this vote, remained largely out of view. His deputy and endorsed replacement in the presidential ballot, Faye, smiling and raising his arms after almost a year behind bars, briefly addressed the crowd, praising them for their support and solidarity. The impromptu rally after the release of Sonko and Faye was the largest for any of the 19 candidates since campaigns began on March 9th. Their release is now likely to dramatically alter the run-up to the election. Faye and Sonko benefited from an amnesty law passed by members of parliament last week. It had been proposed by outgoing President Macky Sall with the aim of easing tensions after 3 years of unrest. Faye had never addressed voters in person, and his imprisonment prevented him from recording a campaign message to be aired on public television. However, his coalition kicked off the campaign without him, pitching Faye as the candidate for system change and left-wing Pan-Africanism. Chukwunon Sonwabweze, NTN News.
President Bola Tinubu has expressed grief over the passing of the Olubadan of Ibadan-land, Oba Mohud Lekan Balogun Ali Okumode II. The president condoles with the family of the Olubadan, the government of Oyo State, the Olubadan in Council, the Oyo State Traditional Council, and the people of Ibadan-land over the demise of the monarch. And up next is our weather report. This is where we end the news. Many thanks for being part of it. I am Charles Alpha Precious. Ozamene has been our sign language interpreter.